Trump uses a mixture of blank and blank to hold his hair together.
All right, Steve Coulter, Trumbull Times editor. I'm going to go with poorly educated voters and Polish illegal immigrants.
I'm going to go with Democrats and President Obama's fake birth certificate.
Who wins that round?
That's so close. I'm going to have to go with Obama's fake birth certificate.
And Democrats.
And Democrats, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's really good.
All right, well, everyone, welcome to this week's CT Pulse. I'm Kate Czaplinski with Josh Fisher, Steve Coulter, Trumbull Times editor, joining us because we're playing a new game called Humanity Hates Trump, which is made right here in Connecticut, in Trumbull, actually, by ECS Direct. Trumbull, yes. And Steve, you've been interviewing the creator of this game, right?
Yeah, Howard Greenspan was nice enough to take a Saturday morning to talk with me over the weekend, and we chatted about the game and everything that's been going on. It started in about March when he created this game, and then mid-March they launched a Kickstarter campaign to kind of raise some funds, and they raised about $10,000, and all of a sudden, Cards Against Humanity, who the game is kind of similar to, but not really, obviously with the political aspect of it, has now kind of created this barrier that they can't produce this game. And so Greenspan has now sued Cards Against Humanity because the Kickstarter has been removed and $10,000 of his funding has been taken down.
So he's basically saying that they're using unfair trade practices to stop his new business from coming along.
Yeah, and in particular, the big issue is the black card here, which has the question, and your white cards, which Cards Against Humanity is claiming is their property, their intellectual property, and he's claiming that there's several games of cards that use black and white, and that happened before Cards Against Humanity came up with their product in 2007, and there's been several companies afterwards, and none of them have been sued or stopped in their creation of their games. So he's saying it's unfair.
Which one's made in China?
They're targeting this Humanity Hates Trump in particular.
Yeah, this is interesting. So it's kind of cool it's made right here in Connecticut, and it's been getting a
interesting.
lot of press lately.
It's an interesting company. They've created a lot of different products. I learned they've done the ice cubes that you put in drinks, like the like non-melting ice cubes.
Wow,
Right
who knew? Right here in Connecticut, right? But they're getting attention now because they've jumped on the Trump train.
Yeah, they've never done a card game, and all of a sudden this card game has created a lot of buzz throughout the media, and the lawsuit is pretty interesting.
Yeah, and you said the creator was an interesting interview?
Yeah, he was very expressive in his opinions of what Cards Against Humanity was doing. He thinks that it's actually, honestly, a publicity stunt for them to get their name in the newspaper. He thinks that they love getting the media attention. They're always on the news trying to do kind of perverse stuff, and so he isn't taking it overly seriously, but he obviously has money invested in this product. So
Because probably naming a game "Humanity Hates Trump" would be a little bit of a publicity stunt.
Oh,
too,
yes.
as well,
Oh, yeah.
right?
I'm sure
the game
he likes
the
being
game
in the
attracted
news,
plenty
too.
of attention, and the lawsuit has attracted even more attention. To the
Of
game.
course. And he is coming out with a Hillary edition,
Hillary
right? To be fair to
Humanity
everyone
Hates,
out there.
Hillary 2 is the name of the game that will be coming out.
All right, Steve, that's so much fun. And I know people can follow that story on TrumbleTimes.com, right?
What are some of the other names you have on here?
Oh, well, see, there are some risque cards in here. I do have to say I checked for some editing, but let's see what else I have. I have Clinton Bathroom Breaks, Celebrity Apprentice, Rubio's Robot Overlords. Those are the three other ones I have. What do you have?
Drumpf, which if you saw the John Oliver,
that
was his actual ancestor's last name. Being the only person at the office-mandated sexual harassment training, and the war on drugs.
All right, wow. So a lot of interesting options here. It's a fun game.
Yeah, there's 180 white cards, 30 blacks, and so the way that it's played is that, if I was hosting that round, I'd play the black card and then I'd choose the winner like we did here at the beginning. If people are unfamiliar with Cards Against Humanity, it's the same kind of thing, but political.
Yeah.
And with Donald Trump.
Well, this is fun. We'll have to get an office game going later.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But again, made right here in Connecticut. So a cool story. Steve, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on.
And Josh, we have a lot more coming up on today's show.
We do. Yesterday, if you missed it, we interviewed Tony Wong live on Coffee Break about the state budget. We also asked him if he's going to be supporting Donald Trump for president. He backed John Kasich here in the Connecticut primary. a few weeks ago. And what else are we going to talk about today?
Well, we have a few stories to talk about, including something that caused a lot of buzz over the weekend, which is the state Republican chairman banning a Hearst reporter from covering the convention. He later took that back and allowed the reporter in. But interesting story there, and a few other stories that we're following, like the convention news.
Convention news, yes, the budget and all that fun. And all Doug Smith, of course, is going to come by and share this week's editorial cartoons with us.
That's right. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, a legislative update with State Senator Tony Wong coming up on CT Pulse after this.
It's time to come back to hometown banking, where people are taken into account, not just balances, where community comes first, a place where there's more than one kind of interest, where automation will never replace consideration, where they not only know your name, they know your dog's name too. It's time to expect more. It's time to bank well. Bank smart. Bank local. Bank well.
Alberto Londano Professional Painting, Wallpapering, and Carpentry has been serving Fairfield County for over 20 years. Based in Norwalk, Alberto takes pride in his work by offering you only the best quality service and products. Call Alberto today to get a free estimate and be one step closer to a new and exciting home makeover. 203-866-9635.
I think what makes ONS special is that it has everything that makes academic medicine great. We have the fellowship-trained specialists, but we still bring the style and type of medicine that's indicative of a community practice.
We are all trained in our area of interest and expertise, so our patients see a doctor who specializes in their particular injury.
I did have 2 consults with major New York City hospitals, but I just felt that the care was best here. I was treated like a rock star. The surgery exceeded any expectations that I had.
I'm Kate Czaplinski. Join us for Coffee Break, weekdays at 11 to get the latest Connecticut news, weather, high school sports, and more. News doesn't get any more local than on Coffee Break on the HAN network.
You are watching the HAN network, and you're not alone. Nearly 500,000 viewers enjoyed our broadcasts in the first 5 months. Advertise on the network that reaches Fairfield County, Connecticut's most engaged audience. Contact Jessica Murrin, Advertising Director, at 203-273-7312 or email jessica@han.network.
We're back on this Tuesday edition of your Coffee Break, and I welcome Josh Fisher. Josh hosts CT Pulse with me Wednesdays at 12:30, but he's joining me now because we have our special guest, State Senator Tony Wong, a return guest who we're happy to have back. Tony, thanks for joining us.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me.
Tony, interesting week last week. The regular session ended. No budget has been passed. You're going to be heading back there on Thursday?
We are. You know, what's remarkable is, you know, if you look at what we do as a General Assembly, the first and foremost priority is to develop a budget. The budget functions as a guideline for the 3.5 million people that we represent in the state. But what's remarkable is, as we said over and over again, the governor, in fact, in February, when he made his State of the State speech, said, let's do our budget now. Let's make sure that we don't take the most important job that we have and push it and procrastinate till the last minute. And what do you have? You have a budget that was put together and cobbled together that threw bipartisanship out the door, because at the end of the discussion, Republicans were not included again. And at the same time, there was really no transparency. When you think about it being the single most important document that we have, it was released 6 days ago when we talked about it, right? To this day, we don't know the details of it. Is that not remarkable? Is the fact that we have a document that guides what we do as a state, literally governing every dollar and cent that we do. It's critical. And that gets released and was practically going to be voted on 6 days ago. We waited till this Thursday, but would you believe, as of today, there is still no release. That means that the general public that would be impacted by this doesn't really know. that the nonpartisan Office of Fiscal Analysis, which would review and make sure the viability and the vetting of this budget, has not seen the document. I know it shudders the idea that this is how we govern, and that's the frustration we have. We don't have a budget, and we don't understand it from a transparency standpoint.
Now, you, the Republican Party's in the minority, so you guys don't have to be included in this, right? I mean, other than for this bipartisanship that was talked about back in February. So, when will you? Do you think you'll get to actually see the budget? Is it on Thursday? But also, is it one of the things that was proposed was cutting the educational, the ECS, to mainly rather Republican towns, such as Fairfield that you represent?
I will share this with you. Every town has a priority and focus on education.
Right.
The fact that we make these cuts based upon what you call the education cost sharing formula, it used to be a formula, but now it is actually an arbitrary application of funds,
Right.
which is ironic. But then when you see literally 28 southwestern towns that are predominantly more perceived affluent that were zeroed out. I mean, I always taken the analysis that if you zero something out, that really even means more emphatically that you didn't even try.
Right.
You didn't even try to minimize and create the best scenario to minimize the impact on the communities. And the other part, to make it even worse, is the unpredictable nature of how we govern is we make these unilateral cuts on our municipalities when most of those towns have budgets already decided. Education, the mill rates have all been set, and now we throw and pull the rug from underneath them. So that's really the frustration that so many people feel. But I think the other part, you talk about minority representation. The fact is, though, even though we're in the minority, we represent nearly 44% of the population. The idea that we have bipartisanship is not simply a kumbaya moment. It really brings different viewpoints. You know, when you have engaged debate, you make a better product. When you go into a room and you're in a silo, you create a bill, you start reaffirming to yourself, yeah, this is a good idea, this works. But when you don't have critique, when you don't have transparency and accountability, you create products. And we need to only remember that June 2015, when we passed this biannual budget that was done without any bipartisan input, it immediately cratered 3 months later.
Right.
Because the transparency was not there.
Well, the budget from 2 years before that, kind of the same thing happened.
But you need to understand, in addition to it cratering, in addition to how it impacts people's lives, and it does, you know, what we do in Hartford affects Main Street. But here's the problem. We need to also understand that those budgets were on the heel of two of the highest tax increases in the history of this great state. When you think about that, we have high tax increases and we continue to run into shortfalls and deficits. Here's the problem. Something's not working. And let us all get to the table and make that arrangement. So minority party or not, have differing ideas to make things better is important. What my biggest critique on this budget is it made no long-term structural changes of how we operate as a state.
But Hartford seems to be just like kind of how Washington is and how we've seen this presidential, campaign all year, where it's you're wrong, I'm right, and what's the point of actually getting together and agreeing on something? Because we've seen in Hartford ever since, particularly since Dan Malloy took office, and the Democrats had complete control of Hartford, that the Republicans' thoughts and opinions didn't necessarily matter when it came to the budget.
Well, look, this is the week after Mother's Day. The reality in my household, one-party rule doesn't work, right? And we laugh about it, but the fact is, the ability to have mutual respect, mutual input, makes a better product. And when you have the majority and you decide to kind of say, my rule goes, you know what, at the end, you have a flawed product. And so I think the frustration is, let's move away from, partisanship. Let's get together and say, things need to change. I really did like the phrase shared sacrifice. But if you really look and diagnose the breakdown, it's been the taxpayers that's been footing the bill. I'm asking everybody to step up. The Republicans did propose a budget, and we made some structural changes. Was it pretty? No. But the reality is we looked at making legislators take pay cuts, increased contributions to our health and pension benefits, and really revisiting how we, as a legislative body, need to show the leadership in making the sacrifices. You know what? This budget doesn't do that. And more interestingly, I can't really attest to it because I don't know the details.
Right.
Isn't that not remarkable? It's a lack of transparency that is dumbfounding.
Right.
Now, Tony, it doesn't seem to just be the Republican minority that's upset. I mean, most of Connecticut media, there's been editorials. People seem very frustrated, again, with the budget process. Do you think that any of that pressure will help maybe move things along and help create some bipartisanship?
We worked. I mean, the incredible deficit numbers were shocking. So as a result, we did work together. We did go in the room and try to find some solutions. And the problem was, when it came down to making hard leadership decisions, the Democratic Party and the leadership, along with the governor, decided to go it alone. And you know what? I take no joy in an end product that will hurt people 3 months, 6 months, 9 months down the road. And we need to understand, we need to make these structural changes now, because literally coming July 2017, we're going to have a new budget, a new biannual budget that is nearly $5 billion in deficit. We need to make these changes, because what we're finding out is changes and deficit mitigation hurts the most vulnerable, hurts the people down on Main Street, hurts education. And I have to tell you, some of the things that I've found are really alarming. Case in point, we've advocated in the legislature, in the governor's office, to be a second chance society, to allow people that have suffered incarceration at the expense of mental health, substance abuse, domestic violence, and the cycle of poverty. Here's the problem. We have let people out, and I support that in the proper circumstances, but now we just eliminated $10 million from the city of Bridgeport's reentry program. We've gotten rid of the STRIDE program to allow the formerly incarcerated, which is the new society's version of the Scarlet Letter, to say that we're going to educate, we're going to create a support network, and we're going to give you pathways to gaining jobs, to reentry. We've eviscerated the program. How do you advocate on a philosophical standpoint and then sweep the rug from underneath those programs? How do you say that we have to be a social and just society to care for those most at risk and vulnerable, and sweep the rug from underneath them by devastating their support programs? This is not how we govern. We need to address the concerns by being honest and prioritizing.
Wow. So, speaking of politics, now you guys had the Republican, the party conventions last night. The Democrats did too. Democrats got to renominate everybody. You guys have a fresh slate. You were the vice chairman, right?
Yes.
Of it? Yes.
It was exciting.
Yes. And so, John Shaben from the 4th District down here in our corner of Connecticut, state rep from Reading, was nominated to run against Jim Himes. And Representative Bennett, right, from Bethel? No, I'm sorry.
State Rep Dan Carter.
Dan Carter. I don't
Yep.
know why. Dan Carter,
He won.
who I know I saw John Kasich speak in Fairfield. You two led John Kasich's attempt here in Connecticut. What are the prospects for your party coming into November?
Well, it was an incredible experience working with Governor Kasich from Ohio on the presidential. What I saw in the presidential election was people got energized about the political process. They felt that they had some sense of ownership in this process. Donald Trump came into town, Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders. You know what? This is something that young people and more experienced and mature people can say, I was part of a presidential election process.
Right.
That can only bode well for activism. In the state convention, it was interesting. I had a chance to read off all 5 of the congressional candidate people. And before I started, I said, first things first, we need to understand that anybody who runs for public office needs to be commended. Whether they're Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, the reality is politics has become so disengaged and people have grown so disenchanted with it, they don't want to participate in it. It's gotten so mean. But for anybody who's willing to do that, they deserve our support and applause on that. But saying that, look, here's the reality. As I said to people, it is all in the candidates to be able to share a message to define their own candidacy against a national platform, whether we agree or not. I said practically, for us as candidates, as Republican candidates in Connecticut to succeed, we need to define fiscal responsibility and social accountability. Those are Connecticut Republican mantras. They're not the National Republican Party. They're not the presidential candidate mantra. It is what we do in our communities. And that's something that I reinforced over and over again. As candidates running for state office and for your local offices, it's all about your community. The party should be important, but at the end of the day, it should be about caring and respecting and representing your community.
Quick, we got to go soon, but sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I want to quickly just know, kind of yes or no, will Trump help the Republican Party gain more seats as you guys have in the House and the Senate over the past few years, or hurt you?
You know what? That is one for the political scientists to really keep their eyes on.
We'll leave it to them.
You know, and I think it's fascinating because at the end of the day, it shows a growing activism and engagement. But the reality is, we cannot forget what has created the enthusiasm and the activism for Donald Trump and a Bernie Sanders on both parties. There is a tremendous disenchantment with business as usual. And I'm going to translate that to the state budget process we talked about earlier. It is business as usual, and unfortunately it's hurting people. And as a result of that, there's fear, there's uncertainty, and people are taking back that they don't trust their government.
Are you voting for Trump in November? Why is that funny? He's a Republican nominee.
He's not
I
right.
am really focused on state politics
There you
and
go.
helping people that represent the state.
You voted
Oh,
for
wait.
Clinton?
I do want to turn this back to the legislative session a bit. Tony, before we go, one or two things
Kate
that
always rescues
passed, bills that
everybody.
passed that you're really proud of or excited about in this
Well, I
session.
think two bills that I think we do every day to make our community better. I think one bill I'm very proud of is the school safety threat. We have finally increased the penalties for those that make threats to our schools that aim to wreak havoc and create fear in our students, in our parents, and our educators. That has been raised to a level of a felony that reinforces again that you do not invoke these kind of fear in our communities. And we're going to catch you, we're going to punish you to the highest level under the law. I think the other issue is something that we work very hard of, and really by municipal leaders as well as firefighters, is to create a bill that supports and works toward the recovery of firefighters that catches cancer, that might be resulting on the really hazardous job that they do going into fires with burning components that are so potentially toxic. We have understood that there is a social responsibility to provide safety and protection for those that protect us. And we did it because municipalities offered their input on fiscal costs. The firefighters came back with input and flexibility and contributions. That's how we govern. Opposing ideas, sitting in a room, being adults in the sandbox, and just making a better product, because at the end, that's our job. We are to represent the people that elected us.
Well, Tony, I think that's a perfect way to end it. I think we need to wish you some luck going back this Thursday to Hartford.
I wish more people had your attitude.
I know.
Well, it's going back as an immigrant and understanding that my parents escaped the communists, and I grew up in a country that was supposedly a democracy but was under martial law, that this kind of program and this kind of transparency does not exist, and it's sanctioned by government, is something that I'll never forget. And to be able to engage in the political process where, I'm going to go back, the fact that we're going to vote on a budget that's presented 6 days ago and the general public that are going to be impacted by this does not know, that's just unacceptable.
Well, Tony, please keep us updated. Thanks again to Tony Wong for joining us yesterday on Coffee Break. I think it was a good discussion. You got him a little nervous there with that
Still want to know who
question.
he's going to vote for president. You know, he was. We should. At the end of the show, we had some of our interns here, and Tony was talking to them, and he said that was a good example of sometimes it's better to not answer a question.
I agree. Hey, you have to know when to hold back.
I still would like to know who he's
But
voting for.
the Connecticut Senate is heading back into session on Thursday, so we'll see what happens with
Tomorrow,
the budget
right?
tomorrow.
Back to work.
All right, well, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we have some stories we're following this week, and we also have cartoons with Doug Smith coming up next.
Walter Stewart's Market in New Canaan is your time-saving local shopping destination for the best of spring. Find many of your favorite products, from great specials on everyday items to the freshest organic produce, artisanal cheeses, and grass-fed steaks. Drop off your knives to be sharpened, grab a beautiful bouquet of spring flowers, and stop in next door for a wine tasting. Plus, their personable staff is always ready to lend a helping hand. So stop in to Walter Stewart's Market, 229 Elm Street today, or shop online at stewartsmarket.com.
Can't wait for it to get warmer so you can start fishing again? Get over to the Dock Shop, where they have the latest in fishing tackle, marine electronics, boating supplies, and more. But remember, the Dock Shop isn't your average tackle shop. You'll also find the finest selection of nautical apparel, jewelry, home decor, and gifts in New England. Boater, beach bum, fisherman, or simply love the New England coast, this is a unique place to shop. The Dock Shop, 51 Tokenique Road, Darien, 609 Riverside Avenue, Westport, dockshop.com.
For over 25 years, Mike Cizik Painting and Wallpapering has been the name to know for residential and commercial properties in Fairfield County. He uses only the top brands, including Benjamin Moore, for impeccable preparation and lasting quality. Call Mike now and receive $500 off any job over $7,000. Mike is currently accepting reservations for spring, so call him today at 203-770-8869 or 203-972-3310. For your custom painting, finishing, and staining needs, it's Mike Cizik.
I'm John Kovach. I'm a newspaper editor. I'm a high school football coach. I'm a television presenter. And I want you to love fishing as much as I do. Tune in to Yankee Fisherman, Thursdays at 1 on the HAN network. It's like going to the tackle shop without leaving your office. I'm John.
We're back on this week's edition of CT Pulse on the HAN Network. I'm Kate Czaplinski with Josh Fisher, and it's now the time in the show where we take a look at some of the interesting stories that we're following this week, Josh. Really interesting one I saw kind of come up on Friday. The Connecticut Mirror and Hearst Media reported that as the Republican Party was preparing to showcase their candidates at their convention, which was Monday, controversy erupted after the GOP chairman, J.R. Romano, announced that he was banning a Hearst, Connecticut media reporter, Neil Vigdor, from the state convention. He claimed this was because of unfair coverage, which he had spoken to Hearst about in the past, and they had not corrected, so he was banning Neil Vigdor.
Which, and I never saw him cite specific.
I didn't see anything specific
either. And Neil's been covering Connecticut for at least 20 years now. He's been with Hearst for at least almost 20 years, and is. If any, Dixon, who also works for Hearst and has been covering the state capitol for, who knows how long, will do little jabs at people every now and again, as these guys do. I just always find it interesting when a political party then singles out one person. It never ends up working out
never
well.
Ends up. What's the best way to be sure a reporter continues to cover you is demand that they don't.
Right.
You don't get any say in what reporters cover your state convention. So interesting. But he did take it back, and we do have this video that the Connecticut Republicans posted on Facebook, him explaining that decision and move. Check it out.
Connecticut Republican Party. I'm standing in our empty convention hall getting ready for tonight's state convention, and I wanted to address the controversy surrounding this convention due to my decision to deny credentials to one member of the media because of what I felt was unfair coverage of our candidates and the party. Now, as chairman, it is my responsibility to stand up when I feel as though our party and our candidates are being disrespectful or being covered improperly. And I felt that I did that. So what I'd like to say at this point is that that particular reporter is welcome to our state convention. He will be credentialed. I just needed to draw attention to what I felt was unfair coverage. And to the Connecticut Democratic Party, what I'd like to remind them is that the Constitution is not a game of hopscotch. You don't get to choose the numbers that you land on. And quite frankly, you should be more concerned about how your policies have negatively impacted every family in this state, unless you happen to work for the governor. Then you get raises. That being said, come tonight, let's enjoy a great state convention. I'll see you here.
First of all, thank you to the CTGOP for shooting a vertical video, because if there's one thing that the world needs more of, it's vertical videos.
So that was all of our first thought seeing that video.
Did you use your iPhone 4 to shoot that? Did you borrow it from your, 13-year-old daughter? I mean, I don't understand.
And now listen, I mean, we go hard
What a
against
joke.
Democrats and Republicans. That is a joke. I'm sorry. Hey, what he says at the end is true. You don't do well unless you're employed by the state and then you get raises. I mean,
Right. Well, no, that's true. You
but
can't
we've-
hopscotch the
right.
Constitution.
Of course.
I don't get that exactly.
I think he's referring to some bill, but I'm not sure which
Okay.
one. But either way, I thought it was very silly. But again, it's kind of that Donald Trump style of this is a way to get us attention. Let's say we're not going to speak to this person. We're not going to deal with this person. That seems to be they're kind of following a national trend of what's working in politics right now.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It never works out well though.
No.
For I mean, it's worked out well for Trump, so maybe we shouldn't say. But this is different. But Trump's a lot smarter, I think, than J.R. Romano is, or the collective brains behind the state Republican Party.
Yeah. I think it's a little disappointing. I remember when J.R. Romano was elected chairman, people were excited. He's younger. Maybe he's going to bring a new perspective after a very bad election cycle. So I'm a little disappointed to see that.
But that's this whole thing. It's like, oh, we need to, it's a very cynical thing, I think, just, oh, he's young, so let's pick him. What does he actually bring to the table? I mean, he's been involved in some campaigns.
In some, the campaigns that have done well. Maybe that was kind of the push for that at the time. But
I think, though, that the Connecticut Republican Party should actually focus on nominating some good candidates to run for office, as opposed to picking and choosing who in the media can cover and criticizing the media. The media in Connecticut's gone after Democrats as well as going after Republicans. But, I've long said that the biggest problem in Connecticut is the Republican Party, because they give us terrible choices every November for the most part. And then so the state just defaults to voting for the terrible Democratic choices that we get also.
Yeah.
But a party that has said no to John McKinney, said no to Chris Shays, said no to Rob Simmons, really, and they finally said no to August Wolf, who was kind of the outsider candidate, and went with Representative Carter from Bethel to be the U.S. Senate candidate this year to go against Blumenthal, which we all know in a president, I mean, unless something crazy happens and, the world continues to flip over like it has nationally, I guess, when it comes to politics. I mean, Blumenthal's going to be the U.S. Senator from Connecticut for life. Until he doesn't want to be, so it doesn't really matter who you run this year.
He's also been a guest here on CT Pulse.
He was. He was on our first ever episode. And
good memories.
You're saying that I have a good memory. I can remember all the way back to January.
Well, you know who else was on our show that has now been officially nominated? John Shaben, a state rep from Reading. He's going to face off with Jim Himes, which is also going to be a tough battle. So well, congratulations
it is always nice,
to him
and it's nice to see some more, Carter's from Fairfield County.
Yeah.
It's always nice to see some.
And he
some
was
people
a great
from
interview. I mean, he was.
Shaben, yeah.
Shaben was a great interview. Yeah. Very
great hair
interesting.
too.
Great hair.
Yeah. So.
Any other stories?
But he's not going to win either, Kate. Though that's what we have to point out. Jim Himes is going to win. I might even vote for Jim Himes.
I like Jim Himes. I really think Congressman Himes does a good
I
job. I also
Shaben
liked
too,
John
but,
Shaben.
yeah.
I thought he had some great ideas about things, and we enjoyed talking with him here. So, I mean, they're both good candidates. So
It's
we'll
just
see what
pointless.
happens.
Like they should really be focusing on the
Don't
local
lose heart, Josh.
races.
I feel like I have to talk you off a ledge right now.
Oh, I don't care. It's good. It's fun. It's fun. Watching trains crash is fun as long as you're not on them. So it must be terrible to have that first class seat in the CT GOP train right now.
All right, Josh, what other stories are you following this week?
Well, we had. I'm not really following anything else, Kate.
Right.
I mean, we were going to talk about
following-
Shaben and Himes, and that
And we
we
kinda
kind
did
of
that.
just talked about that.
All
So, do you know he's originally from Brooklyn?
Yeah, I did see that
Just
in
like
the
Bernie
story
Sanders.
that the Reading
They're
Pilot
basically
had
the
up.
same person.
Look at that. Who knew? Oh gosh, did he die if he heard you say that? Well, all right, let's throw it over to Doug Smith now. It's time to draw some conclusions. I love this week's drawing conclusions. You fool, I said I wanted him drawn and quartered. Nice, Doug. All right, Doug, always fun to have you. You have a friend with you this week.
Oh, yeah. It's we got a little robot team going on this week, so I thought I'd bring him along.
All right.
Who is that?
I don't know,
Does he
some
have a
sort of
name?
like Darth Vader knockoff from. And
From the dollar store?
why whoever created this robot makes him like a tapered, like buff physique? I don't know.
All right, Doug. Well, let's take a look at your cartoons this week. What do we have up first? Tell us about this one.
This
must
is
be
from
related to
our
the
etiquette column, and person's writing in saying like they are always drawing a blank when they see someone again because they're always forgetting their name.
Well, that would be an awkward time to forget
Yes.
someone's name. Good point, Doug. All right, what do we have next? Tell us about this one.
Okay, well, this is in Lewisboro, and this has to do with the HUD situation, very similar to the 830G in Connecticut. HUD told them a few years back you have to get your zoning and compliance so it can allow integrated housing for lower income people, and I guess they're not doing it fast enough for HUD. So they're trying, according to County Executive Rob Astorino. They gave some incentives to developers. They've already got a couple housing places there, but it's not fast enough. So I guess they want to sue them.
All right, interesting one there. What do we have up next? The Old Milford Firehouse. I'm excited about this. It's going to be turned into a brick oven pizza restaurant.
Marty McCarthy, I guess he's Fairfield. He already has a place in
Black Rock.
Black Rock, right?
Yes.
The Fire Engine Pizza Company.
Yep.
And he's going to open another one, and we'll give him a little plug. I guess it's excellent pizza.
It is good pizza.
Yeah.
I've had it before. It's great. And I think it's so cool they're going to be purchasing this old firehouse. And
Yeah.
I like your idea that maybe the fire truck will deliver the pizza, which he used to operate out of an old fire truck. That's why he started as the Fire Engine Pizza Company. So cool cartoon there. Up next, we have some Angry Birds.
Yeah, some exciting news for the Golden Eagles Marching Band. They're going to be in the 2017 Macy's Day Parade.
So cool. Trumbull High School Marching Band. That's awesome.
Some real bragging rights there for them.
That's cool. It's not going to be about the Eagle. It's going to be about the Eagles, not turkeys. I love that. That's very cool. Oh, and we've been welcoming Zika in.
Yeah. Couple of cases reported in Connecticut.
Couple cases, and I know that the state's been preparing for the possibility that some mosquitoes carrying the virus might come. But this looks like a friendly welcome committee here.
Right. When I passed this cartoon around, somebody commented like, "Oh, I love the cartoon. It's cute." And I was like, "Wow, wait till I do one about TB or leprosy. It'll be adorable."
I think we have a robot one up next. What's up next?
Yes,
Tell us about this one.
New Canaan. They have
Bring your own device.
Right. Bring Your Own Device is a program that allows students to develop, to bring devices like laptops and tablets to class, and I guess it's getting some positive results even from the parents. And
every kid in Fairfield County has their own robot.
Yep.
In case you didn't know.
So speaking of robots, this is from the Valley Gazette a few years back, and folks along Route 34 didn't want a truck driver training school to open up there. And if you've ever been on that stretch of 34, it is not a good spot for tractor trailers to come in and out.
Or an HAN cruiser, but
yeah, that's true.
And up next, we have some more robot humor. A history class in the distant future that would appear to be the barbarian invasion of Rome circa 114 BC. Incorrect. That is election season in Shelton, Connecticut, circa 2009 AD.
Now that one wasn't even my idea. It was the editors at the time. It was a character, but
nice. I like the next one we have coming up. Tell us about this one.
Valley Gazette again. I think it was Aquarian wanted to do a big water tank project because they want to get city water up on a really rocky mountainous area in the valley, and it would require a massive water tower because they really couldn't dig and bring the pipelines up there. And people, again, didn't want a giant water tank next to their house, but at the same time, they wanted city water.
What will the kids graffiti at night?
Hey, that's for vehicles only. A little electric charging station.
Yep, that's from New Canaan.
More robot humor. You are a big robot fan, Doug Smith. I am finding out today.
And the best thing about being me is I can plagiarize myself because this ran in Easton a few years later.
All right, Doug. Well, as always, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, Josh, before we wrap things up, in case anyone's heard any growls, yips, or anything, we should mention that we do have a special guest in studio. A little shy about coming on air officially, but that is Corgi Rubio. So we were happy to have her in
She'll be filling in on coffee
today.
break tomorrow morning.
Oh, good. I look forward to that.
Maybe doing color at the baseball game today at 4:30, rematch of the FCA championship at last year's Staples at Wilton. At Staples, as I have a Marco Rubio moment here.
And of course, Nutmeg Sports is coming up at 2 o'clock today. If you missed any of the show, be sure to catch it at han.network. You don't miss our round of playing Humanity Hates Trump. Very fun game made in Connecticut. All right, we're going to wrap things up. We'll see you next week.